Hey everybody, welcome to the 23rd CAF update. I'm Bill Cox, your host as always, the owner of Comic Art Fans. Welcome you to the show this evening. Today I've got a few guests that are in the green room. We'll bring them on in a little bit, but I want to get started with our usual CAF update, which is going to cover the period of December 7th through the 13th. There's been a lot of sales this week, and a lot of it that I don't report on. We had over $1 million in sales from our auction houses and the comic art dealers that we track. But we also didn't track anything that are in the Comic Link auctions, which probably amounted to another $750,000, $800,000 in sales, and that was from the auction from last Tuesday. So you always have to kind of bear that in mind, that when we talk about the numbers that we report on from our dealers and our auction houses, it's really only the people that either I'm allowed to report on and include their data in ours, or that I'm working with as a dealer and collecting their sales information on a regular basis. Hey, Tatiana. You'll be happy there's a piece of yours in the featured popular art today. So nice to have you on the show and tuning in with us. So I'm going to just kind of jump in so we can get our guests in quicker today. I'm going to start off with the dealer report. Jason, yes, I am as in shock as you were. But honestly, I was thinking it was going to go to 200. So call me stupid, but 177 is still a lot of money. All right, let me get this dealer video lined up for us here. And dealers, I can tell you right off, as we always say, dealer sales are always based on what the asking price was of the art before it was removed from the Comic Art Fans dealer database. That's basically how we get all that the data. People we host, they mark their artwork for sale in their admin. It removes the art from ours, and it does not record whether or not they mark the price down or, did a cash trade deal, anything like that. All I know is what it was at the time of the sale. And the number this week from dealers was astronomical, and it was all because of one sale. The sales figure was $660,000 as a total amount, and it was all based off of one sale that Ramita Man had that was for the that Iron Man Submariner #1 cover by Colin and Everett that you're going to see in a few minutes, that sold for $400,000 as the asking price. Now, I don't know if it was, if it really was for that amount or not. I know that it was a cash deal. So normally cash deals have a little bit of a discount. You never know how much, but all I know is that when it sold with an asking price of $400,000. So the top three sellers of the week from the dealers were Ramita Man then, with 35 sales that amounted to a total of $442,000. Albert came in second with 42 sales and just over $98,000 in sales. He had a big update last week as well. And then Felix, he had 104 sales that are a total of just over $70,000. So a really big week for all three of them. Anthony was somewhere around 25,000 in sales with, I think, just over 90 sales, but I didn't include him in the summary report that I pulled together here. So let's see, let me pull up the video for you here. And so here's the first piece, of course, and the 660,000 from Comic Art Dealers. This is the Bill Everett Gene Colan piece sold by Ramita Man for a $400,000 or asking price, yes. And next up is a Sandman #1 page from it's page 29. Sam Keith, of course, sold for $30,000 from Albert Moy. Now this is a complete interiors sale for $24,000, not just the title page splash from Biliquis that you see here. This was from Felix Comic Art from the Dreaming issue 20. Complete interiors only, no cover. Next up is another sale by Albert Moy. $12,000 for this Jock cover from Detective Comics 872. Nice view of Albert's gigantic logo watermark. You see that again here in this next one. Also by Albert. It's a Frank Whiteley piece, sold for $8,500. It's from Batman and Robin, issue 3, page 20. And finally, this New Warriors 26 cover, which I really like a lot. It's by Mark Bagley. It was sold by Panel Page Art for $5,800 as its asking price. Hey, Scott, 3 good ones. Congrats. Yes, very much so. And so again, it's hard. It's always hard to say, but that was a huge week, all from that one sale. It would have been a great week, better than average week without that sale, honestly. I think the prior week's total sales were $249,000. So this week being $659,000, it would have been, even without that sale, would have been $20,000 more than the prior week. So a good week all around for original art dealers. There wasn't a lot of art posted this last week from comic art dealers. I think there's always a little bit of a lull around the holidays, so it's hard to say what the sales will be like in next Wednesday's report. And that is actually when we're going to do the next report, is on Wednesday rather than Thursday, which is Christmas Eve. I'm not going to do it there. Rich Cirillo will be sitting in with me next Wednesday, by the way. So as far as the auction house results go, this was another uptick week. Heritage actually had 3 separate auctions during the course of the week. They had the regular one on Monday. Then they had that special Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle auction that had some Eastman Laird work in it. And then they had a animation art auction over that weekend that, strangely enough, they didn't give me all the data. With the Heritage data, I'm actually sent their listing file, and then I get a prices realized file afterwards. And for whatever reason, there was a Charles Schultz piece, or pieces. I think there was 8 or 10 character sketches that sold for a lot of money. I don't even remember how much, but that was omitted from the results that were in that auction. So it's something either I'll have to go back in and manually add in for myself, to get it into our market data. But I'm not reporting on those figures in this section. So with this week, there were 342,000 in sales from the auction houses that we track with eBay and the 3 Heritage auctions. That's up from 294 the prior week. Let me pull that up here. That's a terrible scan for a Jim Lee and Lee Sullivan RoboCop 2 #1 cover, sold on eBay for $4,999. And it's a Jim Lee trifecta, by the way, from eBay this week. The next 2 are charity fund auctions. One was this Jim Lee Wolverine piece that sold for $4,301. Better scan. And then there was this Rogue piece by Jim as well. Both of these were 9 by 12 inches. This one sold for $3,551 for an Armenia charity fund. The next 3 pieces are from Heritage. And I just kind of cherry picked these. This is the Kevin Eastman piece done by Peter Laird as well. It is from Turtles #7, splash page 13. It's sold for $18,000. Next up, this is from the weekly auction. It's a Gene Colan, Frank McLaughlin, Wonder Woman 291 splash with Wonder Woman and Zatanna. Sold for $5,520. And this is the Herb Trimpe and Mike Esposito Marvel Team Up 117 page with Wolverine and Spider-Man. It sold for $4,320, which is a crazy price. I'll never be able to afford average pages again. I see stuff like that. This is from the Comic Link auction. Todd McFarlane cover, of course, from Spidey 299, sold for $2,500 or $250,000. Pardon that. And then, of course, the Marvel Comics Presents page from 81, page 1, splash trade paperback cover, of course, as well, sold for $177,000. Just amazing. I mean, Comic Link had to be pretty thrilled to just have that in their auction because it drew a lot of attention to a lot of the other pieces that were in the auction. And that one, like I said, I was kind of thinking 200, but it's always really hard to, it's hard to go by, what you're going to get out of those things at the end of the day. But I thought that was really solid. And, there's Ankur. Thank you very much. 288K. I knew it was a really high amount, higher than I was expecting to see. And I don't really know why it was omitted from the data that Heritage gives me. Usually when they have an auction like that, I get everything that's almost, if it's in pencil, I get it. If it's an animation cell, they kind of omit it. So I'll have to go back and probably just manually add that one because that was a pretty important set of pieces by Schultz, I thought. And I was surprised they weren't part of the lots that they gave me. So let me get on to the popular artwork for the week. And once again, I'll tell you, the way I work this out is over the course of the week, I keep one browser open and I just have multiple tabs. And I'm picking the artwork that I think that I'm going to want to feature. And by the time I sit down to do this, which is usually around Tuesday of this week, this week I actually had 30 tabs open and it was really hard to kind of pick and choose which pieces. So I omitted a lot of really great pieces of artwork from this last week. And, it's tough. It's definitely, thanks, Rich. That's no peanuts. You are absolutely right. So the pieces for this week, let me pull these up. First up, this is from Dino Mauricio's collection. He's going to be on our chat in about a month. This is a Fantastic Four annual #2 page. It's Clobbering Time from The Thing. Jack Kirby, Chickstone, just a fantastic piece. I had to start off with that one. This is a collection of Paul P., Ron Lim, and Joe Rubenstein. Infinity Gauntlet #4, page 28. This is an amazing piece. Next up is this Bruce Timm. It's a Fantastic Four, World's Greatest Comics Magazine, #4 cover, collection of Kent Mansley. Now, this is, of course, in Nick Brucci's collection, Mark Bagley, Sam De La Rosa. This is the Venom Lethal Protector #2 cover. Khalil Giran, his collection. This is Ron Lim again. Tom Christopher's the inker. It's Silver Surfer #23, page 22. Just love that last panel. Next up is Commission in the collection of Felix Liu. This is Aliens by Paul Pope. Thought it was really interesting the way he did the 2 different angles on the same scene. This is in Tatiana's collection from Sean Gordon Murphy. This is Chrononauts #4 cover. Congratulations, Tatiana. And this is probably my favorite piece in the lot. This is Official Handbook of the Marvel Universe, Kraven the Hunter. It's from issue #8, collection of Ron Lim. It's from Mita Sr. and Joe Rubenstein. A close second would be the Silver Surfer graphic novel, page 26. And it's in the collection of Michael Wygant, Jack Kirby, and Joe Sinnott. Michael, don't worry. I will take your bad scans and I will color correct them every time to put them in here. This is Ron Frenz and Klaus Janson, of course. This is in the collection of John B. This is from Amazing Spider-Man #251. This is again in Paul P.'s collection. It's Tony Daniel doing the artwork. It's Batman and Robin Eternal #6 cover. It's from 2016. And one of my favorite X-Men covers by Chris Bacallo. This is from X-Men #359, inked by Tim Townsend, collection of Joshua Tan. This is Silver Surfer 110 Splash, collection of Glenn Crane, John Buscema, and Jeff Isherwood. And the last piece that I'm featuring is this Amazing Spider-Man #10 page, #16, collection of Wes Stefan. Artist, of course, is Steve Ditko. And Wes is actually going to be on the Dino Mauricio chat that I have. And I believe that's going to be on February 2nd. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to doing that with them. And let's see, let me pull up a couple things here. Yeah, that was, but Jason, I do not know about that. I do not know. So, so with all that in mind, I just want to, kind of jump over and just start bringing my guests in. We always try to mix things up. And this is the first time I'm going to have a couple of guests that are focused on things that we haven't really talked about in the last 7 months of doing these online chats. And it's guys who are focused on getting commissions. So I want to welcome to the show Travis Ellisor and Josh McCoy. How you doing tonight, guys?
How you doing, Bill?
Very good. Very good. It's nice to have you guys on the show. So you've been working from home for a while. So how has that affected your collecting, habits, not being able to, get out of the house and not be able to go to cons? I mean, as 2 commission guys, has that stymied your collecting, or have you found yourself doing more deals during this time?
I'll go first. Affected me a little because I do have some sketchbooks that I like to get drawn in, and I mean, everything from conventions to free comic book day shows to store signings, I like to get that done. And that's a good way to pick up commissions. So some of that has slowed down. But also with the pandemic going on, it seems like more artists were taking at-home commissions this year. So there's a little bit of one, a little bit of the other.
I agree with Travis. I've, sketchbook and jam pieces that I'd normally do at cons those are kind of set aside for now. But the at-home commission opportunities were definitely there.
Right. I mean, that's what I've seen too. Is a lot more artists taking commissions, especially early on. Right in the March, April, May, and June. it seemed like there was just a lot of opportunities to reach out to creators, either directly or through the reps, and line up commission opportunities. So, I imagine you were pretty active, at the beginning of all this.
Yeah, and I wish I had known that was coming. I could have saved up more.
Right, exactly. See, that's the thing is that, we've talked about this a lot, is, the fact that you're not traveling to shows means you have more money in your pocket. So, you want to, you're able to line up more if those opportunities were, existed for you.
Mm-hmm.
So Travis, you see, you did a lot of work at cons, getting those jobs. The same kind of thing. I mean, you said you were in Florida. Do you travel a lot to shows, or do you just hit mostly the shows in the Florida?
I'm mostly, I hit MegaCon. That's the big show here close to me, and then, but everything else is usually done through email and just contacting people and seeing what is available and what we can do.
What about you, Travis? What do you travel a lot for shows, or what's in Alabama that you would normally have gone to?
I've honestly never been to a show in Alabama. I'll go over to shows in New Orleans. I've been over to Pensacola. I hit the Gulf Coast of shows. I've still never hit Heroes, although I keep planning on it. I was kind of planning on it this year, but that didn't happen. But yeah, and I'll be honest, I like smaller shows. Smaller shows, they'll usually have, one or two kind of big artists, and you can usually get a very good commission from them there because there's just not a lot of people bothering them there, and they have time. So I take advantage of that.
Well, Heroes is definitely a show you should get to if you can. It's I haven't been to it in about 10 years, but I'd probably gone to it 5 or 6 years consecutively prior to that, and it was always one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, that's the artist mecca.
It is. It definitely is. Even if you don't end up with getting a lot of art, you'll end up hanging out with a lot of artists and having a good time, either during the show or after the show. It was always one of my most fun shows to attend. So we were talking a little bit, before we got on the air, and strategy wise, I think, you guys mentioned that a lot of times going into a show, you would even prearrange work. Do you do that a lot, or do you, what's your kind of, and I'll start with you, Travis, as your MO. I mean, do you go into the thing knowing that you're going to line things up ahead of time, or do you just rely on chance and know which guys you want to, artists you want to talk to when you're at the show?
No, as soon as I decide I'm going to a show, I research and I watch daily to where guests are added, and if it's someone I want to commission from, I try to contact them as early as possible. And most will arrange commissions before a show, some will not. And then sometimes you show up at a show and they'll have a guest show up that you didn't even know was going to be there. And so I've pulled that off before. I've showed up, and I think it was Mark Bagley and Mike McComb were at a show and they weren't even announced. And I've got commissions from both of them because no one knew they were going to be there. I just walked by and there was a table. I'm like, hey, look who's here. But yeah, I try to arrange it beforehand if I can. And that usually gives the artist more time to work on it. So it's usually done when I show up the show first day, and I can go ahead and pick it up. I've already paid for it, PayPal beforehand. Don't have to carry cash to the show, which I love. Although most artists take credit cards now, but 10, 15 years ago, you had to bring cash.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I try to arrange beforehand if possible.
What about you, Josh?
I'm the same way. I'll look and see who's going to be at the show and who I'm looking for, and then I'll try to contact them beforehand. The pieces I'm getting are a little more involved, so to give the artist as much time to get them done is, the ideal process for me. Especially these days, I'm lucky if I get to go to the first day of the show with kids at home, and usually, in the non-COVID era with sports going on the weekend, that's usually my, Friday day that I try to hit the show and get things arranged. So, and if someone's there that I didn't know about, then I'll usually rely on a friend for a pickup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, friends are good to have in this hobby, that's for sure. Yes. So if with things being what they are today, then what would be the what's really changed the most, in your collecting habits? Travis, you had mentioned that you also collected published pieces as well. So I mean, what I really liked, what's the mix of published pieces versus commissions in your collections?
Majority commissions. I have very few published pieces. I have one cover. I've probably got nearly 10 pages that have been published, and I haven't even posted them on the site. I've never even scanned most of them, and I've never paid for a page. I don't.
How'd that work?
Well, I arrange commissions, and sometimes if it takes too long, the artist will just throw in a page just like a bonus, to say, hey, sorry I took so long, and it gets me a page. And usually it's a really nice page. I'm pretty surprised by that. I tried going after some pages before on auctions, and it's like I'll get to the end of the auction and I'll just get blown out of the water. They'll go for way more than I expect them to. And it seems like as the years go by, the pages just go for more and more and more and more. So yeah, I've decided to stick with commissions where I can decide the price with the artist and I don't have to chance it anymore. And I can decide exactly what I'm getting drawn. Pages, sometimes it's a page exactly what I want drawn, but it's hard to find. Most pages are, I don't know, it's kind of what I want. But with commission, I can define exactly what I'm getting.
So do you find yourself, even when you're doing, you're like lining up a sketch before a con, you're telling them exactly what you want, or are you just telling them the characters that you want in it? Because I know, and I'll tell you what, don't answer that question. Maybe what we should do, Travis, this will be a good way to do it, is why don't we show some of the artwork, the artwork from your collection, and then that'll give us a good point of reference for what we're talking about as far as what each of you are collecting. So I'll start off with your pieces, Travis.
Okay.
Let me get into here.
All right, so that is my very first commission. I was looking at art online, however many years ago this was, 2009, and Derek Donovan had just done a Green Arrow Connor Hawk miniseries, which I enjoyed, and I loved his art. I'm a big Legion of Superheroes fan, so he had posted online that he was taking commissions, and I thought, well, I know he draws Connor Hawk very well, and maybe I could just throw in Karate Kid, another martial artist, and just have him do a commission of that. And I contacted him, and it was probably like 3 days later, he sent me a scan of that and then mailed it to me. And I was like, well, that was easy, and I really like it. So then I just started thinking, maybe I should get more Karate Kid pieces. And I started thinking of all the characters I could match him up with, and really I could match him up with anyone because that's just how my mind works. And I've gotten a few more pieces from Derek over the years. He's drawn all kinds of things for me, and we've become friends. I see him. He lives over at New Orleans, so I see him at those shows almost every year, or he'll come over near me for free comic book day signings. And Derek's one of those that I hang out with after shows. We go out to eat and stuff like that. We've become very good friends, and every piece he does for me is just outstanding. I love his inks. They're very, very clean. And Derek's one of the best commission experiences you can have.
That's good. We should, after the show, I should put some links up here for some of the people. So if Derek's ever taking commissions, we can get those links out for people.
Okay, yeah. All right, so this one, Norm Brayfogle was my favorite Batman artist ever. And the very first signed comic I got, this was back in the 90s when Nightfall started. I don't know if you remember this. QVC, the shopping program, used to have comic artists on sometimes and writers, and they'd sell signed comics. And so they had the very first part of Nightfall signed by Norm Brayfogle. And I was watching that, and I was a comic fan, and I had never met a comic creator before. And I think it was like $20 for the signed comic. And I begged my mom to let me use her credit card to order that. And she gave in. And so that's something I've held on to for a very long time. Still got that. And when I saw Norm was going to be at a convention in New Orleans, I sent him a Facebook message and said, hey, can I arrange a commission with you? He's like, sure. I haven't had any inquiries yet. And so we set that up, and I thought he did an outstanding job. And to answer your question on how specific I get on these, I gave him the idea. I said, hey, I want Batman going at it with Karate Kid. Karate Kid's, superior martial artist. He's the best one in DC. He's probably the one guy better than Batman. And Norm kind of would argue that a little bit. But And that's generally the only idea I give them is, hey, I want these two characters going at it, and I let them go. And because the artists, their imagination, this is their job. You let them go with it, you let them use their imagination. They'll produce something much better than what you could imagine, is what I've found. And what's funny is I picked this up from Norm on the first day of the show, and we talked quite a bit. Like, he went through all of my collection that I had posted online at the time and looked at every piece and read all the descriptions. And he told me what he thought about some of my thoughts and what some of his favorite pieces were. He was really cool, a nice guy to talk to. And the last day of the show, I went walking by, and I had all of my art in it's kind of a transparent little holder. It holds 11 by 17 pieces. And that was on the very front. And he was looking. He said, "Hey, can I see that one more time?" I said, "Sure." He took his pen and made some tiny mark on Batman's leg. And he said, "Oh, thank God I fixed that. If not, it would have haunted me forever." And to this day, I have no idea what he did.
That's nice.
Okay, Rick Leonardi. My very first issue of X-Men that I bought off a stand was issue 231, which Rick Leonardi drew, and Colossus was featured on the cover. So to this day, when I think of Colossus, I think of Rick Leonardi. And so he is my favorite Colossus artist, and Colossus is my favorite X-Man. So this was brought about by a Kickstarter. It was Watson and Holmes, a miniseries that Rick drew, and one of the tiers on the Kickstarter was you got a commission from Rick Leonardi, and I think it said one character commission. So I emailed the person behind the Kickstarter and I said, "Hey, can I throw in extra and get 2 characters?" And they said, "Sure." So I didn't get to actually talk to Rick beforehand to set this up. And Rick's on Twitter now and has a website and everything, but back then I couldn't find him online to save my life. And he never came to any show near me. So the only description he got from me was Karate Kid from the Legion versus Colossus. So he never thought fighting or anything like that. So he put him in a brick breaking competition. And he made it quite funny. So this is one of the more different ones I got, but I was so pleased with it. It made me laugh the first time I saw it. The Colossus is just gigantic there, crushing all those bricks. And I love seeing Rick ink himself. Back in the day on X-Men, Dan Green inking him always looked spectacular, but his inks on himself, to me, just looked fantastic. I love the black spotting, just everything. Yeah, that's one of the prizes of my collection right there.
That's a beauty. I always liked Leonardi's work too. So no, that's a beautiful piece.
Okay, Nate Stockman. He's one of the ones who I found online before he even had any published comics. Now he's worked on quite a few things. He's done some Spider-Man, Doctor Strange. He's doing a book at Valiant right now, Savage. And I was talking to him about some crazy ideas with these Karate Kid pieces. And I was like, well, what about Karate Kid versus Galactus? How would that work? And Nate's like, I got an idea. Give it to me. So he took off with it. And basically what he came up with is that Karate Kid somehow took out the Silver Surfer and, focused his chi and absorbed his power cosmic and now stole the surfboard and is going after Galactus. I was like, I love it. Nate likes to tell a story when he does his commissions. He really puts a ton of thought into those. He's not just going to throw in a random martial art battle with someone kicking or, he wants to tell a story with everything he does. And he went out of his way with this one. And I love all the energy effects going out there. You got Kirby dots, you got this giant imposing Galactus, and you got poor Silver Surfer just knocked out and powerless, looking pitiful there. I love Nate. He's based in Ireland. I've never met him in person. I don't know if he's ever even done a show over here in the United States, but if he ever does, I will probably travel to it just to meet him. I love Nate. I can ask him to draw anything, and he just blows me away every time.
So anything that you've done with him, you've arranged all through email?
Yeah, because like I said, he's over in Ireland, and we've never actually met in person. But anything, I can arrange stuff through email with him all the time. Nowadays, I usually just direct message him on Twitter instead of even email. But yeah, Nate, he's usually available for commissions, not 100% of the time. Like most artists, sometimes he gets swamped with regular work, and that always takes precedent. But love Nate to death.
And Jason agrees with you.
Yeah, Nate's a great guy. Okay, Evan Shaner, or Doc Shaner. I actually got an early commission from him many years ago, back before he had a lot of published work, and he knew that I loved Karate Kid pieces. And one day he did like a random drawing of the turtles and posted it on Twitter. And I posted a reply on there. I said, maybe one day I'll get some turtle piece from you because I like the turtles as well. And he said, hey, have you ever done Leonardo versus Karate Kid? I said, no. And then he just drew it. And I said, okay, I guess I'm buying this from you. And I love that he came up with something different, kind of a top-down angle here. And it's basically just Karate Kid doing a dodging move, avoiding the sword strokes. This one was very different. Most of the time, Karate Kid's only offensive on all the commissions I get, but this time, he's doing some defense, some dodging. And I love that he just came up with this out of the blue. I love Karate Kid's feet, the shadows on Leonardo's arms, or on his one arm. That's just a nice little touch to me. But I love that he just came up with this out of the blue, knowing my collection, and drew that knowing that I'd want it.
No, that's a good way to approach it. So you got this at a show then?
No, he drew that from home and then just mailed it to me. He just talked on Twitter and he just said, all right, I'll drop it in the mail for you.
Man.
Okay, Rob Liefeld. Yeah, Rob was coming to a New Orleans show. This one was probably 10 years or so ago. And I loved Rob Liefeld when I was young. When he took over New Mutants, that was just the biggest thing to me. It was so exciting. And so, I got introduced to Deadpool and Cable and all the rest. And so when I saw him, he was going to be at that show. I was like, well, if I'm going to get Karate Kid versus Deadpool, I'm going to get the creator to draw it. So I emailed Rob. I found his email on his website and asked if I could arrange that to pick up at the show. And so I showed up on a Saturday morning, and he had just started drawing it. And he said, are you going to be here tomorrow? I said, no, I'm only here today. He said, then I'm going to finish it today. And he talked to me for a while. Rob's a big Legion fan. When I talked to him about Karate Kid, he's like, which costume do you want? The one that Mike Grell used to draw? I'm like, yes, that's the one. He knew right away what I wanted. And I got to stop by his table a few times and talk to him about Legion and New Mutants and everything else. And Rob was signing books for people all day long. He'd do a quick head sketch here and there, but every time I'd see the progress on it. And by the end of the show, he had it ready for me probably a couple hours before the end of that day. And very pleasant experience with Rob. I know he's one of the more controversial figures in comics, but I had a great experience with him. He was friendly as could be. We just talked all kinds of comics. And just watching him draw was really cool. And I love when Rob inks himself. Yet again, most of the artists I see, some of them will only do pencils, but I love seeing them ink themselves when possible. I think that's when you get the purest expression of that artist.
That's really good. I've met Rob several times. He's a really nice guy. He's got a great art collection, and I don't know. He's never been super controversial to me, but I back in the day, I guess he had some issues, but still, this is a fantastic piece too. And they just did that Deadpool art drop through Panel Page, and it's the same. Really, this piece has the same kind of quality of work as you see in some of those covers that were out there. So no, this is congratulations for this pickup for sure.
Thank you.
Now, the last two pieces that I have for you are in color. Now, when we were looking at your gallery, you had a lot of pieces that were colored by someone after the fact. You did digital colors. So I don't want to forget to mention that if people are checking out your gallery later, that a lot of the images that are in your gallery, like the main image is the digitally colored piece, but you also have the auxiliary images that had the ink pieces. And who was the person who did a lot of the coloring for you?
99% of my coloring is done by a guy named Simon Goff. He's over in England. He saw one of my commissions very early on, and he said, hey, do you mind if I practice some coloring on that? And I said, sure, go right ahead. And then he sent me a high-res file of the colored file that I could print out, so I could have a color print to go with my original. And I was like, man, that's fantastic. And he said, yeah, if you ever want me to color anymore, just let me know. He said, I'm available for commissions. And so I'm slowly having him color a ton of my commissions. He hasn't colored everything. We got a long way to go, but he does all my new pieces. I have a few new ones that I haven't even posted because I like to get him to color it first before I post it on Comic Art Fans. But when in downtime, I send him some old ones to color as well, trying to get some of the old ones. To me, it gives it the feel of, what it would look like as a published cover. Simon he's a pro in the industry. He does mostly with the indie companies. He's done a lot for IDW. He's done a little bit of work for DC and others. But Simon's fantastic, and he puts a lot of thought into coloring as well. And his color palette will change by the piece, and he tries to match the art style. And if someone's had a bunch of published colors, he looks at that to see, what they like and what kind of style they like, how complicated to get the coloring. But yeah, Simon's fantastic. I recommend to him, if you ever want anything digitally colored, hit him up. He'll make it look amazing, and he'll send you a nice high-res file.
Cool. Does he have a website that we can link to later?
He does. I'll post that in a minute. Okay.
Fantastic. All right. So the last two pieces were colored, like I mentioned.
Yeah, these are painted pieces. Tom Fowler. My main commission collection is the Karate Kid one, but I have a smaller one with characters from Asgard meeting characters from the Fourth World. So Mangog, who is a big Thor villain, probably my favorite Thor villain because he's just ridiculous looking. I pitched the idea to Tom Fowler about maybe having him go up against Big Barda and Mr. Miracle. And that's what I gave him as the description. And Tom went to town with it. And he threw in a Thor who'd been knocked out for humorous effect on the bottom there. And so we've got Big Barda, she's the warrior type. She's just going right out and knocking him right in the jaw. He's captured Mr. Miracle. And of course, Mr. Miracle is getting rescued, although he could probably escape. He's master escaped artist. But, you look at the look on his face looking at Big Barda, he's totally in love with this big warrior woman. And Tom just knocked this one out of the park to me. It's just, I love the colors. I love the figures. I love the little word balloon with Thor. Everything about this is fantastic. Tom is one of the most talented painters I've ever seen. I wish that it didn't take so long for him to paint and that he could do a full comic like this. But, most of his published work is just, pencil and ink. But this painted stuff is just amazing to me.
You lucked out with that one. That's absolutely beautiful. I love it.
Thanks. And okay, the last one here, Drew Moss. This one I arranged. We were talking about doing a single figure commission. This is a Legion character, the Infinity Man, or Infinite Man. I'm always getting those mixed up. But he's a Legion villain who has lived throughout time. He lived through the end of time and the Big Crunch, and then went back through the Big Bang and lived through time again, and it drove him insane. So I described the character to Drew, and all I asked for was a single figure, but he decided to draw him at the end of time during the Big Crunch and it's Infinite Man, when DC's universe is compacting, and you can see some of the New Gods heads, the Anti-Monitors heads, some of these characters who he thought would make it to the end of time, but even they're dying and they're going away, and the only one left is the Infinite Man. And I love the thought that Drew put into this, and the color work he did on this is pretty amazing as well. He used some watercolor, some marker, a little bit of everything. And that piece is one of the biggest pieces of my collection. I had to scan it 4 different ways to try to piece it back together. He just went above and beyond on that one. So yeah, I much love to Drew. He's another one who knocks out great commissions anytime. He posts art every day, sometimes published pages, but always commissions he's working on. Mostly the headshots that are just, he goes out of his way with headshots, colored paper, to make the theme of the character, things like that. He's very much worth following online.
Yeah, I will commend you on what you do in your gallery as well, Travis, because you do put a lot of descriptions in there, and you always link out to the people that you're working with. So
Yeah.
it's not easy to do in our interface. It's something that I hope to fix one day. But I know that the effort that you have to go through to actually put all of those links in there for the creators is pretty impressive.
Well, I know HTML due to the work, so it's not too hard for me. But yeah, I don't think there's an easy way to add links in the descriptions unless you know that.
No, not at all. But we're working on a redesign right now, and that's something that I hope to put in at least a small WYSIWYG editor to make linking easier and bolding and italicizing, just simple stuff. We always wanted to avoid that. We were concerned about what could get put into the description fields early on. But I mean, 18 years later, it deserves to be in there to make everybody's life easier. So I know what you've gone through, and it should be a lot easier going forward. So Josh, let's before we look at your artwork, I guess and I didn't ask Travis this, but I know that Travis, you sort of got involved in seeing creators through QVC as a first step. But Josh, when did you decide that you wanted to either get commissions or just start collecting original art?
I kind of knew it was out there from going to MegaCon when I was in high school and college in Orlando, but at the time it was out of my price range. It's comic art or eat, and at the time it was eat, and probably drink too. But so I didn't really start picking up. I mean, I picked up the odd smaller piece at MegaCon, in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, but probably not till mid to late 2000s did I really get into everything.
So what was as far as your start, did you know going into it that you wanted to start with commissions, or did you pick up a few pieces that were already pre-done?
No, I'm probably about 60-40 commissioned to published.
Okay.
But I was actually looking through eBay for published pieces and saw an auction for Scott West, who actually ended up doing my first Iron Throne piece. But at the time, I had asked him for I called it a Beast Brawl, which was just about every form that the Beast had in X-Men, beating up the Cat Beast, which I love Hank McCoy, but I couldn't stand the Cat Beast version. So they were all kind of beating on him, and that was the first piece he did for me. And then later on, when I had the Iron Throne idea, I went to him first.
Yeah, where'd you get that idea for the Iron Throne?
Just I loved the novels, and at the time the show had started and it was really picking up steam and everyone was loving it, and I was like, Iron Throne, and obviously made the connection between Iron Man and Marvel, and I'm like, that would be a cool piece. So I brought it to Scott and said, what do you think about this? With the Mandarin, obviously he's the big Iron Man villain, and he was like, that sounds pretty cool. Let me see what I can do. So he put it together, and it just turned out so well that I was like, if this would be kind of cool to have other characters vie for this throne, and so kind of to my own detriment, I kept going.
Well, why don't we'll start off with that, the artwork from that particular commission. So when you talked with him about it, he pretty much probably took it on as a challenge, right? I mean, he didn't really tell him to use it.
I was just like, what do you think about this? I didn't tell him specifically, other than the Mandarin and sitting on a throne of Tony Stark's armor, and this is what he came up with.
Now, was this done at a show, or was this done?
This was done through eBay. Well, actually, outside of eBay, I had, like I said, I initially found Scott through there, and then he was running another auction for a commission, and I said, this is my idea. What do you think of it? He goes, I could do that, and so I went ahead and bid on it and got one of his commissions, and he put it together.
So was the auction, because I see artists, offer commissions through auctions a lot. Was the direction that it was one figure plus light backgrounds? I mean, what, how did you?
Yeah, he, if I recall, he had one figure, and then he had kind of a tier. If you wanted this or that, then it might be a little bit more, but so. Yeah, I think if I recall, this piece was, I think he put this together for under $100.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it was a good place to start for sure.
Yep.
But I can see why you would have taken this as an idea and said, you could expand on it, right? But out of curiosity, when you do get a new Iron Throne commission, do you give reference to the artists, or do you just kind of?
Yeah, these days I kind of explain what I'm looking for, and I'll give them a link to my gallery there on CAF, and then but for the most part, depending on the artist, and even if it's someone who's known for a certain character or characters, I may ask for those characters, but for the most part, I just ask them, here's what I'm looking for. These are my character ideas that I might have in mind at the time, but I'm open to any suggestions you might have, and I just don't repeat the characters really. And as far as the throne goes, I kind of always refer them to, this was the original one. You can feel free to base anything off that or go wild, because there's all kinds of Iron Man armor out there. So
very cool.
Now this one I set up through Cadence, and Sheldon Bella went nuts with it. I mean, this was nothing like I expected. To take it and put it on to Ghost Rider's motorcycle, and this was just amazing.
Wow.
So many different details, and all Iron Man armor connected there, and it's just very cool.
Yeah, that's why I think giving the artist just a general idea and not being very specific with work direction, they'll surprise you a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, I usually just tell them, whatever you're going to have the most fun doing, So if they're having fun with it, then you get a better piece.
Yes.
Now, on this particular example, you said you went through Cadence. So did you really have any interaction with the artist, or did they kind of relay your thoughts?
No, they actually, Paolo there, just I had emailed him and said, and this was an early piece as well, and I was telling him what I was doing. I was like, do you have any artists that might be interested in doing this? And, he was one of the artists that stepped up and said, oh yeah, let me tackle this one. So, and he just knocked it out of the park.
Well, he definitely did.
Yeah, when I go through dealers, and I don't know if I'm supposed to do this or not, but I'll set it up to the dealer, but then I'll find the artist online and contact them anyway and say, hey, this is being set up to the dealer. I've already paid, but I just want to show you this is where my gallery is. I want to make sure you have the best reference, because I've got tons of reference for all the characters. And I contact them just outside of the dealer as well.
Yeah, I usually try to do that too. Just because, so they have a clear idea what you're looking for.
Correct.
Now this one was done by Andy McDonald, and this was the first one, leave it to 90s Cable. He started doing it and used all of Cable's villains and all of their armor, and ended up forgetting to put Iron Man in there. And but once he got it to me, it was just so great looking, and with all the X-Men, X-Force, Cable villains, I didn't worry about it.
Yeah, I love Andy. I've gotten a couple pieces from him as well. He's a great guy.
Yeah, I think actually I may have, and there's, along with several other artists I've used, I think I saw he had done something for you, Travis, and contacted you and asked you how to get in touch with him.
Oh, I do the same thing. I think we all do that. We see a fellow commission collector get something from a certain artist and like, hey, what how'd you contact them? But, might even ask, what did they charge and all that.
Yeah.
Then we go after them. I've had that happen many times.
Did you, do you find yourself contacting each other through CAF or on Facebook groups, that sort of thing when you're
Both.
Yeah, originally probably through CAF. I know that's how Travis and I started talking, and then later on through Facebook.
Cool. Hey, Tatiana, who is an art rep, mentions just be sure to tell the dealer anything you've told the artist. Don't assume the dealer knows, because they often don't tell us, and communication can break down. I mean, that's true. I guess, especially if you were going to try to change the commission in some way and things are getting negotiated differently, I guess that could become a problem, right? But Tatiana, so I guess if you were going to change anything that would change the price, certainly you'd have to make sure the dealer knew about that.
I don't ever try to change anything. I just want to make sure they have the reference. And I want to see my gallery to see other examples to get an idea of what I wanted.
Yep. I'm the same. Mostly it's just, hey, I'm here if you have any specific questions.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I've heard, some people I can tell you when I first started getting commissions, and that's how I started, and then I just switched to just getting published pieces or con sketches. I always felt I was too overbearing in my requests. I didn't realize it at the time, but I'd go in and just try to over direct the piece. And I think that it, ended up making me not like the experience, because I knew the artists, the couple that I did work with probably didn't like it either. So, you know how that goes. I mean, it sounds like both of you have more of a hands-off approach,
Yeah, I like that for a while.
I found that, playing art director that's not my job.
Is that Chris Stevens?
This is Chris Stevens. Got hold of him, actually saw originally some of his work on CAF there that when Tim Townsend was sharing it, and then saw that he was doing commissions through a post on Statue Forum, and got hold of Chris and started throwing some different character ideas at him, and surprisingly enough, he said he didn't really want to do any female characters. He felt like he didn't do them justice, which, if you've seen his work, he's selling himself short. But he was excited to do Deadpool, and then basically made the throne into a giant gaming chair and everything. And I love the different things he did with the armored hands, throwing up the peace sign there and everything. So
I love the pizza box.
Yep, the pizza box, and like I said, I think in my description of this, it looks like Deadpool just got mad about a game of Call of Duty or something. So
no, that's fantastic. I love Chris's work. Like you, when Tim started sharing pieces around, whether it was on CAF or I think on the Comic Art L, he was always sharing links to Chris's work. He's always been somebody who's really impressed me, and if I was ever to go back and get a commission, he would probably be top on my list. I just love his work. I think maybe Felix is repping him for commissions.
Yeah, he's with Felix now.
Yeah, I got one from him too many years ago, and I actually didn't have an idea for a Karate Kid matchup for him when he told me he was available. So I just said, hey, how about Colossus versus Juggernaut? And he threw one of those to me, and man, his tones with the markers are just amazing. And that piece is huge as well. I don't even know what the measurements are on it, but yet again, I'm gonna have to get a bigger scanner for some of these pieces, because people keep doing them in very large sizes, and I have to piece them together in Photoshop. That's never fun for me. But yeah, Chris, great experience working with him as well.
This is Mike Perkins. This was one I actually specifically asked him for Iron Fist because he had just started working on the book. And this was one that I set up before MegaCon. It was just originally supposed to be a pencil piece. And then I got to the show and introduced myself, and he goes, I hope you don't mind. I was having a lot of fun with this. I got carried away with it, and I wasn't going to complain. So it turned out great.
Yeah, I like how he's coming forward there, the perspective on that one.
Yeah, definitely different perspective and just reflects what he was doing on the book at the time. It was a great piece.
Yeah, I love Perkins' work a lot.
Yeah, he's on my list.
This is the same show, MegaCon 2017. Contacted Eddie Barrows through Fred Chamberlain, who helps him sell his work, and Eddie put this together. Besides, being able to get this from him, Fred was there, so I got to visit with Fred, and then Eddie was there, and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, and they were all together. And so as I was picking up pieces from the show, I'd bring them over, and Eddie and Jose would look at them and give us feedback on the pieces that my friend Hector Medina and I were picking up. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Fred's a great guy, and Eddie's work is fantastic.
So those backgrounds on that piece, is that with markers, or do you know?
Yeah, I believe the window is, and some of it is with Copic, and it's just a little bit of mix of everything. But
and Fred's tuning in tonight too, by the way. That he says that's a great weekend. Here, I'll throw this in here too. Alex Johnson suggests that try Cam Scanner on your phone for the big pieces, that it works well. I've heard of that. I've never tried it myself. But I have an 11/17 scanner, so I've never had a mess with that. But it could work.
Yeah, I have 11/17 scanner as well, and it's fine for most of them. But some of these ones I get are just way bigger than that.
No, I'll agree with Alex. I've used Cam Scanner in the past. It does work well, surprisingly.
Okay, cool.
I might have to try it. Now, I really like this next one too. This is a beauty.
Yep. Daniel Gover at that same show. He went to pick that up, and he was sitting at his table, still finishing up, and just the way he used the gauntlets there to project the light up at Archangel and was amazing. But same thing, him being here, a Florida artist, and getting to know him, we'd stop back by and talk to him. But kind of like what happened with your Brayfogle Batman, every time I'd stop by, he'd like, "Oh, hand that back to me and let me see it." And he'd take his paintbrush and add a little bit here and there, even though I thought it looked great. He's like, "No, I feel much better about it." So
yeah, they're all perfectionists. That's what I find with artists, and the more time they have to work on it, the more they are going to work on it. And I've met Daniel as well. I've got 2 pieces from him. He is another fantastic guy. I'd like to see him at a show again, and hopefully in the future. He is really great with painted pieces.
So with the level of detail in this one, then Josh, I assume that this was done before the show, but he still tinkered with it.
Another one that was set up before the show, and so he did the majority of it before the show, and then was finishing up that morning when I got there.
Here, and I'll even throw this up here from Fred. He says that Josh is one of the nicest and most unassuming commission requesters, and artists respond well to that as much as they do to having a fun theme to work on. Attitude and approach makes a world of difference.
Checks in the mail, Fred.
And Samuel asked who is the artist again, and as Alex said, it's Daniel Govar. If you go onto CAF and search on Daniel's name, you'll find a lot of work from him, and it's all very, very strong. And we've got one more piece by McGinnis.
I love that.
This is my latest one, and again, gave Ed the choice of a few characters, and I think a second after I had clicked send on it, he immediately responded that he wanted to do the thing. And I told him use whatever armor he wanted, and he just selected the Hulkbuster armor, which really brings a presence to how big Thing is, and the armor around him, and Ed told me that he thought this was the best piece that he'd ever done. So, that's high praise.
Yeah, and I agree.
Yeah, and it looks like everybody else agrees as well. Yeah, no, this is a great piece. Ed, Ed can do no wrong. I love almost everything he does, and but I've never really gone to CAF or whatnot and searched just for commissions. But this is pretty impressive, and I wasn't aware that he did commissions. To be honest with you, I mean, I always thought he was so busy he wouldn't have time.
Yeah, he recently set up his own website, and I happened to see that he had commissions on there, and emailed him and asked him when he might be taking them again, and he told me he'd be in touch as soon as he opened up, and I heard back from him and immediately said, all right, let's do it.
Well, very cool. I'll have to email about that, because he has a gallery on CAF and sells work through there, and we've emailed quite a bit, especially like when we're moving towards like Comic Art Live and he's setting up his booth and whatnot. But I should tell him he should let me know those things too, so I can push it out to people on CAF to let him know when he's taking commissions or he's got art updates, because I don't think I've ever run an announcement for him.
Yeah, he's got some great pieces on his site.
So, Josh, I'm curious while I've got you on here, what's the fastest turnaround you ever had on a commission?
2 days, I think.
That's pretty good.
Joe Kelly, another one I set up through Cadence. I think I set it up on a late Friday afternoon. Mm-hmm. And by Monday morning, he had sent me the file. It was the Galactus Iron Throne piece, which, he did a great take on it, and he even threw in Silver Surfer, and it's just Galactus with the throne piece in his hand.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, 2 days was the quickest one.
I think my fastest had to be Ernie Chan, back before he passed. I recently started collecting commissions, probably about a year or so in, and I had to work on a Sunday, and things were really slow, and I was just looking at things, and I saw that Ernie Chan had a website, and I thought, well, he's one of the few artists who has worked on Karate Kid when he had his own series, and he worked on Iron Fist. So why not put those two together? I emailed him Sunday around lunchtime. I said, hey, can you do this commission? He emailed me back a price in like 5 minutes. I PayPal'd him 5 minutes later. I think it was 3 hours later he sent me a scan. I'm like amazing.
He was always fast. I'd seen him at some conventions, and he's quick. I mean, but he packs so much detail into his pieces. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I like his brushwork a lot.
Yeah,
he was really awesome. So Josh, and you don't have to name the names you don't want to, but what's the longest you've waited on a commission?
I'm usually, surprisingly, I haven't run into too many people that have kept me waiting too long. Mm-hmm. I've had a couple of artists that, early on took a lot longer than, and I got the same standard, I'm working on it, and then you don't see any progress. So both those cases, I ended up just saying, don't worry about the commission, and traded it out for something they had already done, or a published piece they had already done. I'm not one that is willing to wait around for 2 or 3 years for, because I've read the commission horror stories that are out there about people waiting or longer, and that's just not my case anymore. I wouldn't do it. So these days, and for the most part, if I'm setting up something new with an artist, it's, let me know what your price is. I'm not going to send you anything through friends and family on PayPal. I'm more than willing to cover your PayPal fees, but I've found that that's the safest way to do it. Is you make sure the artist is covered; they don't have to take the hit on the fees, but you're protected as well.
Yeah, I've waited years on some of them. I've still got a couple of years, and I've had the artists, hey, they've even offered, like, I'll give you published covers or whatever if you want, if you think you're waiting too long. But I keep waiting, and everybody, eventually gets to them. But I'm super patient, and I don't care. I'm going to get my piece.
Yeah.
I don't want to go. I
Well,
refuse.
yeah. Well, that's, you see, so we have two extremes. One, after you've hit whatever your limit is, Josh, going into it, just getting, just saying, hey, I'll just take a published piece or something you've already got done is probably a better way to go. Because then it doesn't, it's not going to hurt you. At the end of the day, at least you're walking away with something. You might not be happy, but it's, you end whatever agony you might have gone through if you had waited longer.
Yeah, it might not be exactly what I was looking for, but then at the same time, it's still something I can appreciate, and the art didn't get ruined for me by the experience.
Well, for me, as long as they stay in touch, as long as I email every once in a while and they're like, "Hey, you're still on the list. I promise I'm gonna get to it." I'm fine with it. As long as you talk to me, I'm fine. If you don't reply to emails, then I'll have a problem. But I get a lot of artists before they get big. I like to look for brand new artists and hit them up. And sometimes it takes a while, and sometimes they get big, and they get lots of big assignments. DC Marvel, they become in demand, and their commissions, go 10 times that much. But I'm like, oh no, I paid $100 for mine like 2 years ago, and I'm still getting it.
Oh man, yeah, we were talking with somebody, I forget who it was the other night, and they talked about buying published work and trying to find guys who they thought were going to be, really hot later on, and it's always fun to just find new guys who clearly have a path to stardom, and trying to get in early and pick up artwork from them. I mean, for me, I actually commissioned Dave Cockrum like 4 years before he passed.
Oh wow!
And so that would have been in like 1990. I forget what year he passed, but it was probably around 1999 or 2000, and for a $500 commission. So I was like, I knew he needed money. He was probably one of the first people I had given money to, but I never got it. He ended up passing, and it was a 3 or 4 year. But I knew he was sick too, so it was like, I felt, I didn't know it wasn't like I could ask him for anything published because he wasn't doing a lot of work at that point, and I didn't want that, right? I wanted what I'd asked for, wanted to get out of him, and at the same time, I wanted to have it be something big because I wanted him to have the money, because I'd see him at shows all the time, and I knew that was kind of all he had at that time. And so that's my worst commission story. That's the only one I never got.
And even though I say like hitting them up when they're new artists and getting a cheaper commission, I don't like paying too cheap. Like I see some of them give out their rates and they're just ridiculously cheap. I'm like, man, you got to ask more. Like, I'll ask for a 2 carat commission and they'll say $50. I said, no, you charge more than that. Like $100 would be the bare minimum, and that's too cheap. I try to tell people, don't undersell yourself, because you get taken advantage of, because you got to look at it. I look at it as like an hourly rate. If they're going to spend a whole day working on it, why on earth would they get paid just $50? They need to be paid more than that. And a lot of artists appreciate that. They'll remember that. They'll remember you're the guy who paid more. So I always try to be kind to the artist. I'm patient. I pay enough. I try to provide the best possible reference. But I try to provide great reference. Anything they need, there for any questions. And then I just kind of, like I said, I let them kind of go wild with just the idea. If you're cool with the artist, they'll be cool with you, is what I find.
Yep.
That's the best way to have good experiences.
Yeah, like I said, if it's something I've set up through rep, and I know going in how long it's going to take, I'm fine with it. I'm not worried about it. If it's someone I worked with before, same thing. I'm fine with it. Not worried about it. If it's someone I'm working with for the first time, it's better just to protect everyone involved. In that way, the artist is covered, you're covered. And if the communication is there, then I might let it slide. But if the communication isn't there, you keep getting, okay, well, I worked on this and I'm doing this, but you don't see any results, then it's just better to protect yourself, especially some of the horror stories you've seen out there.
Oh yeah, there are horror stories. And Bill, if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask it. What kind of binders do you use, Josh? Where do you get them from?
Usually Ayatollah and Amazon. Occasionally occasionally I've gotten some through Anthony's, but yeah.
Yeah, Anthony bought a ton of them recently, and he had some decent deals if you were willing to buy like a case of them. I know that. I don't know what the prices were, but I know that it was a good deal.
Yeah, I bought mine directly. I bought mine from Dick Blick, the website. And I have one here that I was going to show. Some of the pieces, I know you already showed them, but this was when I started in chronological order. And let's see if I can get this in the camera properly.
Yeah, I'll make it full screen.
So it holds 11 by 17. And as you can see, my very first commission was not 11 by 17. So those I have to turn sideways, but I got a turtle one from Jim Lawson, and I had marked some of these. Let's see if I can figure out how I mark these. Like there's Liefeld, and right beside him is Clayman, Karate Kid versus Elektra. And really, I guess these are bigger than 11 by 17 because that's what I don't know what the boards are. I guess they're close to that, but this holds even larger than that. Although some of my larger pieces still don't fit in these because I got some that are just gigantic. Let's see. There's my Brayfogle Batman, and right beside there, let's see if you can see that. I can't turn this thing with the camera. Chris Samney, Wonder Woman versus Karate Kid. I got Samney pretty early on. Yeah, and there's Shaner. That one's kind of small, the Karate Kid versus Leonardo. But I love these binders that every time I order them, it seems to be a little different. Like this one, you can see it's rounded off. And some of them I got, they're squared off. They're much harder. This one's a little softer and bendier.
Which brand is that, Travis?
I got it from Dick Blick, and I think that's, let's see, this is Art Profolio.
Oh, Profolio. Yeah. Okay. No, I know that brand.
But yeah, I've been very pleased with those. I need to get some different sizes because I want to get my smaller size art and put it in a smaller size binder so I'm not wasting all this space. But I need to reorganize my entire collection, and everything's just, like I said, most of my stuff is in stacks nowadays. It's just 3 stacks, but it's 3 very tall stacks.
So you must not have everything on CAF then, right? I mean, how much?
I've got a few that, like I said, I don't have any published pages on CAF. I've got a few commissions that I haven't put yet. Like I said, I like to get, nowadays, I wait for them to be digitally colored before I post them. So once I get it in, I scan it, I send it off to Simon, and depending on how busy he is how long it takes. And once he gets the colored version, I want to go ahead and put it all up at one time. Before I would put the black and white scan, and then I'd add a color version much later, months later, a year later. But then how do you get attention to that you've added a color additional image, So I'd rather just go ahead and put it all at one time so everybody can see everything. And I try to put the color image, the black and white, and any work in progress images I can get.
Yeah, that's why when I was going through and picking out the artworks, everything was in color, and I was like, normally I would think it would be the other way around. It'd be like the line art might be the main image, and then the color piece would be the other one. But you had the color piece as the main image, and the other one's the auxiliary images. So I wasn't sure, were these possibly watercolored afterwards, or is it all digital?
No, and I used to have it the other way, and then I swapped it around for the color because a lot of people wanted to ask me about the color images, so I just put that to bring the people in, and they can see the black and white art while they're there.
Exactly. No, that makes sense. So Josh, what since you do collect some published pieces, I mean, is there a focus for you in that way? Or, I mean, is there titles that you're looking for, or artists?
I look for a lot of X-Men, but mostly it's just if a page speaks to me, then I'll check it out. I've got a little bit of everything, but yeah, my main focus has always been I've always been drawn to the X-Men, but most of the X-Men art that I'd be interested in, and the 90s throwback art is out of my league these days. So
yeah, no, well, I started with X-Men too, so I can't play in that game anymore either. Just try to pick up an average Silvestri page anymore, or something along those lines is impossible.
Yeah.
And any Leonardi pieces, Travis, I mean, that's I can't even say I've seen many on the market, in the last 5 years. So that stuff is tough to come by.
Yeah, like all my favorite X-Men artists, Leonardi, Silvestri, Alan Davis, Paul Smith, all out of my price range nowadays. I mean, I could get one, but then I could get, many commissions for the price of one of those published pages.
Right. A dozen commissions. And Jason's a big X-Men collector as well, so he knows. But he picked up with Paul Smith recently, so we can all shed a tear that Jason's got a nice Paul Smith page, and I have never had one. And even back when I could, when I was collecting and I could afford it, every time I tried to get a Paul Smith page, I always got outbid on eBay, and it was always, Gary Land was always the guy who has like a lot of pages, and he would always outbid me every single time, and it was disheartening. To the fact that when I knew I was overpaying, I'm like, I'm willing to spend $1,000 more than this page is worth because I want it, and he'd still beat me in the auction every single time. So I just gave up after a while. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I think one of the favorite pieces in my collection is a John Cassaday Astonishing X-Men cover that has Beast. It's an amazing cover and poignant and I actually found it through CAF, so I was lucky to grab it when I did.
Very cool. I used to have, which one? It was like the one with Cyclops and the White Queen. I think maybe she was putting her hands over his visor or something like that. That cover, I had that and sold it. But I love Cassaday's work. It's beautiful.
Yeah. This is, the furry paw of Beast reaching down, and it's got the broken photo of him and his original X-Men. And
yep.
So
now he's a good storyteller.
X-Men pieces I've been able to grab at before prices went crazy.
Yes, well, Jason says that he did make a deal with the devil to get that page, and I would certainly believe that. And Tatiana mentions, and I saw this page earlier today that Ramita Man did post a Storm and Forge page. It was like from 249, maybe it's 250, something like that. But it was, very nice. And it sucks because I was literally at Mike Berkey's house a week and a half ago, and he did not show me that piece. Not that I probably would have bought it, but it would have been nice to have at least held it in my hands once. So, someone did ask earlier, if you've had any bad experiences, and I assume we've kind of already talked about them. It's like, Travis, you'd rather wait, and so you've probably never had bad experience because you're willing to kind of tough it out through those types of things. And
I've had I had one artist in particular who went a while without responding to me, and that kind of pissed me off a bit. But then after about a year, he just came up. He said, "Hey, I finished it. Your address still the same?" Yes, and he sent it off to me. But I mean, he went like a year. He just didn't respond to me, and I'd kind of written him off. And I said, "Well, I guess I had one of these bad experiences now." But then he actually came through and mailed it to me, and it was really nice. It was a very well done commission as well. So I mean, but most of the times, like I said, most of mine have been very good experiences. Even when some of them, mess up. Like I had one artist who didn't mail it. He had it done. He sent me a scan, but he never mailed it, never mailed it, never mailed it. And finally he mailed it, and he said, "Man, I'm sorry I took so long." He said, "I'll do you an extra commission for free because I took so long." And I was like, "Well, I appreciate that offer, but you know what? No, don't worry about it. I'm just glad to get my current one." I don't know. I felt like I'm too nice sometimes. I feel like that'd be taking advantage to get a free commission from somebody like that. So I was just like, "No, man, I got the one I paid for." I did get a little frustrated. You took so long to mail it, but I got it, so I'm happy. I've never had, so far, no one has completely flaked out. I've got one artist right now who's kind of close to it, but I think he'll come through in the end. I hope so. I like to think the best of people. I'm too much of an optimist. But yeah, I don't know. Some of them just take longer, but ultimately they've all been all right experiences.
And Josh, you sound like you just get out before you ever get to where you have to wonder, right?
Yeah, like I said, the 2 times that I felt lucky that I was able to just say, don't worry about it, and I took a piece that they had already done and or had published and walked away. Those were probably the worst experiences that I've had, and I still got art out of it that I appreciate. So, but yeah, I do a lot of research before I commission someone, and I make sure that I know if they've got a bad reputation, not to go near them.
Well, that's good. So, from the perspective of collecting commissions, I would think that, and because I know this from my own experience, is that, the art is more meaningful to you, right? So it's not something that when you're commissioning an artist, it's probably something you're never going to be interested in selling. I mean, more than likely, it's just, it's a different than when you're buying published artwork, and it even if you love it, it still feels somewhat of a commodity. But when you're commissioning people, it's a very different outlook on the artwork that you're buying. I feel, and I mean, I assume that you guys must feel the same way.
Oh yeah, and that's why a lot of people ask about my collection that don't know anything about art, and they're like, "How much is all this worth?" I'm like, "Well, these are really specialized commissions. They're not like published pages at all." I said, unless the artist becomes very in demand, or unless it's another big Legion of Superheroes fan or something like that, they're probably not interested in it. I said, this is for me, so I don't know what's going to happen to it when I die one day, who knows? It's not like it could be, I guess it could be put on auction, but I don't know what it'd go for. My pieces are very specialized. I don't have any interest in selling anything ever. These are all my babies. These are all what I wanted, what I thought of. Mm-hmm. This is for me to look at. And even today, when I was digging for that binder and the pieces that we were going to show in case I needed to hold them up, I just started going through. I spent 2 hours just going through my art, just looking at it like, oh, I remember this. Oh, look at this. It's one thing to look at it on the computer, but actually hold it in your hands again, just to look at it, look at the little marks on it, stuff on the back, things like that. I just love it. It's my art. I don't want to let any of it go ever. I want to be buried with it.
Just like Walt Simonson. Or he'll be burned with it. But so same thing for you, I imagine, Josh.
Yeah, a similar experience for me. I don't know, who would.
Right. Well, it's your theme, right? I mean,
it's just been a fun idea for me, and I love seeing it come to life, and I don't know that anyone else would have much interest in it other than myself. So, but I appreciate it and enjoy it, and like Travis said, if something were to happen to me, I don't know what would happen to it, but it would probably come in with me.
No, I think that's cool. I think it's just a very different way of looking at collecting. It's a different experience because you're in most cases you're getting to interact with the artist. So there's more to it than even just the piece. There's a little bit of getting to know the person that you're working with too. I mean, and they get to know you too. So at the end of the day, it's got to work well for both of you. But I've always enjoyed definitely con sketches. I mean, for me, that's kind of always been my thing, because I like chatting with them while they're drawing them, or at least talking to them throughout the weekend, and it gives you a reason to go back and say hi, and see if they're done, and if they maybe they don't even get to it. I mean, I had that happen many times at shows, but I like the fact that it gave you a reason to get out and kind of meet the people that you view as your not hero, but somebody you admire for all the work that they've done in the hobby, whoever it was. So, that's one thing that I've appreciated about getting, commissions and con sketches in the past. So, it's a mindset for sure.
I know some artists complain about, flippers who get, sketches or commissions, and all of a sudden they're on eBay the next day. All they got was like a Batman or something that you can sell easily. But like mine are so specialized, they know I'm never flipping anything. So that they always have that reassurance with me. My art's never only going to me. Never. I don't see any way it ever go to anyone else. So that's
it's always kind of cool too when someone does something for me and they'll post it on social media, and then you'll see some of the other artists that also did a piece where you go, oh, I did one of those, and they start discussing it. And
I had the same thing.
Yeah.
And I like seeing some artists come on and talk about it. They'll comment And there are ones I haven't even got, like the Infinite Man piece. When Drew Moss was working on that, he was posting progress on Facebook, and like Mike Mignola came on there talking about, nice piece. I was like, oh my gosh, Mignola was looking at my commission. He likes it. It's cool seeing stuff like that. And I was like, I don't know if I'll ever get a commission from that artist, but it's cool that he's seen my stuff and he likes it. So maybe one day.
Yeah, I had a similar experience kind of happen. Is not a commission piece, but it's a Rocket Raccoon piece that I got from Eric Metter. And then the next thing you know, right before Guardians of the Galaxy came out, is James Gunn was sharing it on his Twitter feed, and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool," and cool for me, and really cool for Eric to get his art recognized that way. So
awesome.
Yeah, that is really cool. So it's different. I mean, from people who collect just the published work, it's something that's out there. And I, back in the day, I mean, since I've been doing this since around '98, and having gone through, the whole phase of getting commissions and getting a lot of con sketches, that always is something that artists don't like to see, is, their artwork getting flipped after shows. And, there's been notorious, collectors / opportunists that have done that over the years, where pieces would be available for sale on Monday or on eBay as an auction, that Monday or ending that Sunday right after a show. And it turned a lot of artists off, or got them to where they raised their prices to the point where, the artwork just wasn't affordable for the common guy anymore to go up and approach somebody, because, they were seeing what the market demand was for their artwork, and they wanted to discourage that kind of process at the same time. And even Kat says, "Yep, they are the worst," and they are. They spoiled it for everybody who wanted, to just go in and have a good time and not feel like people are going to look at you as one of those guys, because the artist just didn't know, So like, you almost felt guilty going in sometimes, and trying to be the first person on a guy's sketch list, because they had it just in the back of their mind, wonder whether or not you were going to sell that artwork right away. So
Bill, when you said when you started you were getting commissions, did you have a specific theme or characters, or what did you get?
It was almost all X-Men related stuff, even when I would get con sketches. One of my favorite commissions is it's on the wall above my monitor, so I can't turn the camera even really to look at it. But it was, I always liked Giorgio Camolo. Mm-hmm. And back in the day, he was repped by Enrico through a site called Red Sector Art. Enrico doesn't rep anymore. He should, because I know he's not. He's a chef. He was working for some burger place, and I know it went out of business, so he should start doing it again. He was really great. Enrico Salvini. And so Giorgio, I gave him the idea that I just said I wanted to have, I always try to get like a Scott and Jean image one way or another. And I said I wanted Scott and Jean fighting sentinels that had been overtaken by Cthulhu. And only because if you look at Camolo's work, though, he has heavy, he's super, if you're familiar with it, he's very detail oriented. And he always draws these crazy borders on his commissions. I mean, literally, that's just what he's known for. And he has a very Kirby-esque feel to his work. And so I was just trying to say, kind of like in that master mold sort of, sentinel. I want something from Kirby period drawing sentinels, but I wanted that spin on it. And if you could see it in my CAF gallery. It's been framed, so I've never been able to really get a good scan of it, but it's amazing, and that it's literally amazing. And I've paid Camolo to do work for me. I publish a book every year, and I had Camolo build I had to have a book plate made, and I had Camolo do just a piece that was the border for the plate, because it was just super detailed. And but yeah, he's fantastic, quick turnaround. And he'll work in almost any size. Berkey's got commissions from Camolo that are probably 2.5 by 4 foot tall cover recreations of Spider-Man covers that are done in Giorgio's style, though, and they're in color, and they're just flat out amazing. And he probably has a dozen of them. So, and he has a CAF gallery too. So I highly recommend anyone who wants something along those lines to look him up. I had him do the an image for the Comic Art Live show in November. It was like a big Kirby hand of Galactus with Comic Art Live written on it. I don't think I could show it, but I don't know if I could find it. But he's a cool guy. Very, very great art. And then other than that, that was pretty much it. It was just mostly, Wolverine. I got a lot of Wolverines. Got a few fastball specials. I never had any one character, out of the X-Men. A lot of Jean Greys. But I wouldn't say I fell out of it. I just say in the last 10 years, as my kids got older, I couldn't buy as much, and so I really haven't done it. But I'm finally in the mindset where I want to start buying and getting sketches from guys again, and now we don't have any shows, so it really sucks. I do need to do more outreach, because that's the cool thing. I'm sure social media and everything like that, you guys know where to look, and and you're on, and you're getting those. See, Jason posted a link to that commission. Isn't it great, Jason? So yeah. See, he's not saying yes or no, so he might not like it as much as I liked it. But let's see. Here's a question from Patrick. Was there ever an artist that you haven't been able to nail down for a commission that you've been after them to, you want to be able to work with them?
Yes, for me it's Pasquale Ferry.
Yeah.
I love him. I've tried contacting him online about a commission, never had any luck at all. He was finally supposed to come to a show in New Orleans a few years ago, and I was going to be there. And I was like, man, I'm going to be there. Walk in early on the show. I'm going straight to him. Whatever I got to do to get a commission. I get there the night before the show, and someone says, "Oh, he had to cancel." I'm like, I've never been able to get him ever. I've been trying for 10 years to set up something, and no luck at all. No luck at all.
What about you, Josh?
Art Adams. I'd love to have something by him. I've heard his commission list is just so long now that you're never getting on it. If I ever win the lottery, my first stop will be to Albert Moy to talk about Jim Lee. But those are pipe dreams. Silvestri would be a pipe dream. Just because those are the X-Men guys that I grew up with.
Oh yeah, I've always got that wish list in the back of my head that win the lottery, there's going to be, you'd know it because there'd be a different commission every day for a year. All the artists who don't do them, they'll do them for the right amount of money.
They could find the time. Well, see, that's back in, if you had that money in, March through May, the sky was the limit. That was the time to hit a lot of people up. I don't think I have anybody. I mean, Pat, it's funny. Ferry, it would be one person who I've actually never met. Love his artwork, and he would be somebody that I wouldn't mind getting a sketch from too. I mean, he's somebody whose work I've always appreciated a lot. But for me, I don't know. All those people on the list, though, Silvestri would be probably near the top of my list as somebody who I'd love to get something from. If I ever could, just wish upon some, who would I want something from? Silvestri's always been a big favorite of mine. Yeah,
I've been recently, as far as reading comics, at the beginning of the year, I started a big reread of all of Chris Claremont's X books. And that includes, Louise Simonson came over, New Mutants, stuff like that. I'm doing all of it. And I've got to the point where just finished Fall of the Mutants, where Silvestri had come on, and he just watching him improve over that first year is insane. And Dan Green's inks on him are still my favorite. That art is just phenomenal to me. I can't believe it. When I got to that first chapter of Fall of the Mutants, there's a sketchbook page where it's supposed to be Colossus's drawings of the X-Men. So it's kind of like a black and white page of just these sketches of them. And that page, I don't buy many pages, but if I ever saw that for sale, if there's a way I could afford it, I would buy it. I'd sell my car if I had to.
Yeah, well, he would definitely be at the top of my list. And I don't know. I mean, other than that, I like just, for me, when I go to a show, when I was getting a lot of con sketches, I just like to hit as many guys as I could hit. And I would say guys and gals. I'll tell you, I have more Katie Cook, $10 or $20, painted little watercolor paintings that she does probably than anything. Because I just like, I like patronizing as many people as I can when I go to a show. That's always been, my MO. Even when I go to that sci-fi fantasy show, IX Arts, if I brought $1,000, I wanted to always try to walk away with 5 or 6 pieces.
Right.
So I'm not going to buy the biggest, most expensive pieces, but I'm going to try to spread it around the room as much as I can, because it just feels good. I end up walking, I bring home more than I was expecting, and and everybody gets something out of that. That's why you go to a show like New York and it's so overwhelming. I can see where, like, to go there, if you guys would ever go there, you'd probably pre line up everything that you're going to do there, versus trying to go through and try to get on a sketch list here or there with a show like that.
Yeah, but sometimes the fun of it is finding an artist at a show that you've never even heard of, and you look at their art and you're like, oh wow, never heard of you, don't know anything about your art, but I want something from you now. That's some of the appeal. I mean, I like having stuff lined up, but I'm going to go through Artist Alley and I'm going to look at everything while I'm there and try to find something new, something surprising for me.
Yeah, Tatiana says with $1,000, she can buy a half of a piece. Yes, I know, Tatiana. Well, you get really nice stuff, Tatiana. That's the thing. It's yeah. If I had that expendable money, I'd be just in the same boat you were. But my kids are 22, 18, and almost 16. So my time is almost ending, where I don't have to feel like I've got to be worried about college and whatnot. So my son's almost graduated from college, and then I've got my 2 daughters, and they're going to schools that are 2-year schools, but where they cram 4 years into 2 years. So at least I can see 4 years from now I will be 100% free, and I can really open up again to collecting. So
you see the light at the end of the tunnel.
I do. I really do. But I got much more conservative as I've got older, and concerned about those things. Even when I had money, I didn't want to spend it, or I'd spend it on the kids versus spending it on art. But those things will change.
Cool.
So let's see. Art is forever. I'm sorry, I was trying to read a couple of the comments, but yeah. Sorry. And then Tatiana. Yep. So I don't see any other major questions here. Did you guys have any other comments that you wanted to talk about, as far as any anecdotal stuff about collecting commissions that you thought would be beneficial for people to know that maybe haven't that we haven't talked about? I haven't seen any real big questions here that are throwing me, but I mean, is there anything about the hobby and the commission side of things that you wanted to relay?
I'd say, if you're setting up a commission, like I do, if you can set it up, if you're going to a show, try to set it up beforehand. Have reference for the artist. Even if they're known to draw a certain character, having reference for them, especially if they haven't drawn them in a while, they can't remember every detail of every costume. And most characters have multiple costumes now. So you may say, hey, I want Wolverine drawn. Which Wolverine costume? Cyclops. Which Cyclops costume? Let them know. We've got the internet. You can find good images of the costumes. You can find, comics covers, whatever you need. Providing good reference helps out. If you don't feel comfortable about paying everything up front, talk to the artist about it. Say, hey, can I pay half now? Can I pay half when it's done, or something like that? If you're not sure about it, and most of them, of course, a lot of the artists I work with, I do more than one time, so I trust them. I'll give them the money whenever they want, or they trust me and say, hey, pay whenever it's done. Everybody's different. But, do what you feel is best, but also, like I said, communication is great with the artist, because you don't want to get a commission where it's not exactly what you wanted. If you want to be specific, but I feel that if you give them room to play around with it, you usually get a better commission. But like I said, reference, always provide good reference. I pride myself in that. That's most of my advice there.
And absolutely, and keep in mind that anytime you're commissioning an artist, you kind of build up an idea in your head, but it's their interpretation of your idea. Sometimes it's going to be better than what you thought. Sometimes it might be worse, but that's the way it goes with a commission. So you have to have those expectations.
And I thought it was good advice earlier, Josh, when you had mentioned use PayPal, friends and family as your payment option, because if something were to ever go wrong, you have nothing to fall back on, as far as having any protection from PayPal or ever getting your money back. It's something that a lot of people don't think about, because a lot of like you said, you'd rather pay the PayPal fee if it's 3.5%, just for peace of mind.
Yeah, and like I said, that way you're protected, and the artist is getting exactly what they asked for as far as price. So,
right. No, I'm always surprised, because and being in business, how many people, and I don't ask for it, but when I send out invoices for advertising or whatnot, how many times I get paid in that way without asking. I think it's just people take it as commonplace anymore, that people to use the friends and family option, and at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense. I'd rather not. I know some dealers, even when if they do a PayPal transaction, they always ask for the 3.5. If you're not going to send cash or a wire or a check, or it's commonplace. But nobody, at the end of the day, a deal isn't really done well if you're sending it that way, because you do have no protection.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, listen, it's been a lot of fun, guys. I'm glad we were able to work this out and do it together, and a very festive background, Josh. It's the first Christmas tree on a chat for us, so I appreciate seeing that.
'Tis the season.
Exactly. Well, speaking of that, then I hope you both have a great Christmas, a prosperous New Year, and one last question. Here's a question for you: how many commissions do you both have out right now?
Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I have 6.
I think I'm on 2 waiting lists right now, but I'm not specifically waiting for anything to come in.
Okay.
And I don't know about Travis, but as I get closer to 100 of the thrown pieces, I'm thinking of wrapping it up around there.
Oh, I'll never wrap up Karate Kid. It'll wrap up when I die.
That's interesting, Josh, because I'm pretty sure when I counted, you had about 90, right? So you only need about 10 more then.
I think I've got about 95, and it will end probably with Iron Man retaking the throne.
Oh, cool.
So,
do you have an artist? I mean, you have to tell us tonight, because it'd be a nice surprise.
That piece is already done, so I'm just holding on to it, holding it back until I get done.
All right, cool. Well, that's one that you should, when you finally do post that, you should kind of send it to me as a press release. Say, hey, Bill, I got the 100. Let's and I can make an announcement out of it, or a news piece out of it. That'd be fun.
I'll do that.
Let's see. And just follow up on the PayPal thing. Ray says that some artists need the goods and services option for tax purposes, and that's true too.
Yeah, I do whatever they want. I've had no real bad experiences. So I've had some artists, they send me invoices through the PayPal, and you can only pay it a certain way then. And I prefer that. Let them decide. Just send me an invoice. I'll take care of it that way. Much easier. But yeah, however they want it, I go along with it. Of course, as you can see, I'm much more easygoing on all this.
Yeah, you don't seem to break a sweat when you're in a bind with these. So, all right, guys. Well, listen, again, it was a lot of fun. I appreciate you taking the time tonight, and I definitely, thanks to everybody who's tuned in tonight. I hope everybody has a great Christmas, a prosperous art collecting New Year, and don't forget that the best of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the best of that we've been doing every year. You're both familiar with it. Yeah, I think probably around the I haven't got this exact date from Brian yet, but probably around the 4th or 5th, we'll start the submission period for the best of 2020 collected artworks, as far as, you know, the submission period, and that'll last about 9 or 10 days, and then we do the voting. So we're not really doing any major enhancements, but I know it's, you know, if everybody liked the process we had last year, I think that they'll be just as happy this year with that. And it's like the one thing I look forward to every year. It's like the only event CAF hosts now outside of the cons that you know, is CAF centric, and we get to see all what everybody feels is the best collected work that they've picked up in the prior year, and then everybody kind of votes on it. So it's, to me, it's like I'm happy just seeing all the artwork that everybody feels is their best pieces, regardless of the ones that gets, you know, votes afterwards. I mean, to me, that's kind of like, you know, at the end, that's nice. I just love looking at all the great artwork. So I hope anybody that isn't aware of that part, you know, does participate, because it's really not a competition. You know, there's no awards for people who get voted 1, 2, and 3 of the cover, you know, covers or a commission side. It's more about a celebration of the hobby and the work that we've all collected. So I would encourage everybody who's watching tonight to participate, put some work into it. It's a lot of fun, and it's really my favorite thing to do every year on CAF. All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you.